Uh-oh. What is that? What's that sound? It's not the Millennium Falcon. It's the Imperial Shuttle. The Shuttle Tydirium kit by MPC. Built by me. It says Shuttle Tydirium, but actually, if you think about it, it's not, because it comes with Lord Vader and Imperial pilots. So this is the Imperial Shuttle. Darth Vader's personal shuttle. So we're going to get into a video walkthrough of how I built this thing. It did not come with the lighting. The custom lighting was provided by, well, not provided, but I bought it from Evans Designs. It's a website, you can Google it. They had to custom make this 5-light circuit that synchronized the lights and caused them to flash like every 5 seconds. So if you're looking to do this project, you can get the model kit right here from eBay. I don't think you can get it anywhere else than eBay right now, because this is an old retired model kit. I actually had this was actually the first model I ever built. This was way back 20 years ago. I built this thing. I think I got it for like $20 at a Walmart before there were super Walmarts. And it was just, I loved this ship. This is my favorite Empire ship. So I bought this and put it together not knowing what I was doing. I believe I have some pictures to show how terrible that was. Let me see if I've got them. Yeah, here they are. Okay, so you can see here, this was the 20-year-old one. It's got glue coming out of the seams. The glue is already aged, and there's just a little bit of things of paint. It's so messy. Some things are broken. I don't think that was my fault, though. I think it was broken during storage. I had to actually glue the wings onto this thing. I don't think you're supposed to do that, but I had to do that like a few days ago because the thing kept falling off. You can see here the interior of the wings. I attempted to paint them. I did not do a very good job. So this is all very amateurish. This was me just trying to do whatever I can. This is before YouTube had videos on how to helps. You can see all the imperfections, and just this thing is not that great if you don't weather it and make it look really good by painting it with an airbrush and doing a professional job on it. It looks okay. You do not want to get close up to this thing. There's all this glue over there. It is well held together. There's a lot of glue holding that thing together. Okay, so here's the kit. This is what the box looks like. It's beautiful box art. MPC makes it. They also make a few other kits. I think Bandai pretty much makes a kit for every ship but the Shuttle Tydirium that MPC made. So this is the one holdout Bandai has not made. I don't know why. But you have to glue this thing. I was not looking forward to that. So Bandai's all snapped together, and they snap together really well. Here it is. I believe I've primed all this, all the parts already. I used a gray primer, and this thing had been beat up quite a bit when it got to me. Luckily, all the pieces were together and not broken. There was a few parts that had broken loose from the sprues, but they haven't been chipped or anything, so I lucked out with that. You can get this kit for $40 to $50. That's the cheapest you can get it. I got mine for $42, and this had been banged up. That's why it was a little bit cheaper. And I've been watching it for a long time, so $42 was the best price I could have found. You can find them up for like $150, but just keep watching it. Don't buy it when it's that high. So here's the old model already together. I've got the TIE Interceptor and TIE Fighter to accompany it. And this was the first problem I ran into. Let me pull up a video real quick of that problem. So you can see I was sanding it. There's a lot of stuff on this model called flash. It's where the seams meet and you have a line that's not supposed to be there. Yeah, you can see I didn't do it at all for this model. I didn't do any sanding. I'm not sure if I even had a sprue cutter, but there was a lot of little flash where the seams meet, there's lines that shouldn't be there, and where the sprues were, there is extra material right there. You can see it's hard to see in this video, but in person you can really see it if you're looking for it. So I was trying to get that off with sandpaper. I was successful with the other 3, and this last one, it chipped off this little gun part. But I have liquid cement and I have super glue, so I was able to get that thing back on there. And now I will show you the results. Let's see, here it is. It actually went back on fairly well. You can see there's a little bit of a bump right there where there's glue, but it's hardly noticeable. So I really lucked out with this thing being able to go back together. I was gonna just probably have to start over if it didn't. Okay, so the first thing you do after you prime is pre-shade. You can see here the snow speeder. I also did some pre-shading on that while I had it. You can see all the surfaces are pre-shaded. That's just black going over all the lines. And before we put the base coat on. The most important thing I thought was, well, this is a technique I use. I don't know if it's a common technique, but let me see. I did a video. Let me turn up the desktop audio. Where are you, video? Where are you? Here you are. Okay, I think I turned off the volume up here. Panels for the Shuttle Tydirium. This is the actual model put together. Built this back 20 years ago. And you can see here, no pre-shading was done. This was before I knew anything about modeling and just kind of looks like crap. But here we're going to do all the pre-shading. The most important part on the pre-shading is to get the sides. Like if you have all these raised surfaces, you get the sides, and then you get every single side. You need to paint that the sides black. That way, when you come in with the white and you go over the top of it, you can spray perpendicular to the surface, and you'll get those artificial shadows, and it'll look really nice, and it won't look uniform. It'll actually look like the model is bigger than it really is with those artificial shadows. You can see here, this is the top and the bottom. I've pre-shaded black, and inside there is black. Not sure what color the inside of that will end up looking, but I've also given the raised little bars a little bit of depth. And all this pre-shading does is give it artificial shadows and some variation, so it doesn't look like this. We're gonna do a lot of work to it, but that's gonna be really important because this model is built by MPC, and the actual craftsmanship of the model is not superior. So it's gonna really require a lot of paint and painting expertise to make this thing look professional. We do have the box art up here for reference, and you can pretty easily see just by giving it a few minutes of study that they did not do it as accurately as I would have liked. Bandai, I'm sure, would have, but MPC, this is the early days of model building, and they've kind of cut some corners. This is a little bit like a Revel model, I think. It's good, but it's not superior. Anyways, after this, I'm going to get done with the lighting, so that part will be next. All right, so I hope that video helped you see that I like to get every side black. And that way, whenever you're painting with the white gray or the lighter color perpendicular, these sides remain darker than the front side that's going to be hit by light, and it just creates this artificial shadow. It looks like you've got it lit well with just natural light. So that's what I was doing with the pre-shading. That I feel like is the most important part. Here's another picture of the sides, just in case I couldn't have that video. So Here's the cockpit. Usually with the ship models, you start with the cockpit, and that's just your natural starting point. I actually like how it looked with just the pre-shading in there. And this is where I'm got to decide, how do I want to do the cockpit? Because they actually have some nice detail going on in the cockpit. You have, I think, 4 options. Your option 1 is to have a clear glass canopy. That canopy glass, it comes clear, so you have to paint it black if you want to. The studio model version is black, so that's what I was going to go for. You can either leave it clear and just paint everything inside black, which I'm not sure would look good. That's like the lowest ranking option. The second option is to leave it clear and to paint everything in there really well. It wouldn't look like the real thing, but it would be interesting. I don't know if you like the cockpit, if you like to see into the interior, then that's probably your favorite option. You can also do a tinted black canopy glass. That requires a little more expertise, a little more study on how to do that, and I just wasn't really wanting to do that, so I wanted it to be completely accurate to the movie, and the movie accurate version is the black painted glass canopy. The one thing I did do was I did not glue my canopy down, so I can always remove the canopy and show off the interior if I wanted to. That's the suggestion I would, or that's the option I would suggest you guys go with. Again, feel free to do whatever you want, but that's what I ended up thinking was the best option. And so I got started on the top fin. This was this little trapezoid, I don't know what, rhombus, I don't know. You put these things in there, and those are not supposed to be like that. I don't know why they did this with the model. It was probably a technicality with how they made the part. They had to have this opening, I'm guessing, because it's not movie accurate, and it seems very strange. So going back to that, you probably don't want to pre-shade this area. So I've got that in, went ahead and painted the figures. I had some gloss paint. They're just like a gloss medium that I put on, like Darth Vader's helmet. This part right here, his little chessboard and his leather gloves and boots. Put on this little insignia right here, maybe on their hat. But yeah, so let's see. We have the painted figures. These are really tiny. It's really difficult to paint them well, but it's very important to paint them well because they are pretty rough. You look at these faces, and yeah, they don't have they hardly have noses. They have like mangled faces, prune face over here. I actually had to sand the flash because they have like seams around the sides. You have to sand that off if you don't want it to look like they've got a line going across their body. I think I did the same with Darth Vader's helmet. It really showed up around his helmet. And the instructions actually tell you to paint these guys' things orange. Like, they're not supposed to be orange. That's rebels. That's like rebel pilots. These are Imperial officers. They don't wear orange. Whoever made the kit does not know Star Wars. So moving on, here we have the fins again. I think I'm about to start with the perfect plastic putty. This is the first time I used perfect plastic putty, and I probably should have read the directions on YouTube first. Like, I read the directions, and I feel like the directions might have told me to sand it. You don't have to. Watch a YouTube video about perfect plastic putty before you actually use it. So I put it down there, and this is to hide the fact that this thing is here because it doesn't actually exist in the studio version model. So I put it down there. I've got the sandpaper out and sanded the thing. You should have done this before you pre-shaded and primed probably. So first thing you do after you cut the pieces out is to glue this thing in and then prime it with this thing on there. That was my first mistake. And hindsight's 2020. I don't think I could have known to do that without it. Or I don't think I would have thought that far ahead without a video like this telling you to do it. Okay, so I sanded. I got all the excess putty off. Then I realized that it was kind of showing through still, so I tried to, gradually shade it. Hopefully it wasn't going to show through. When I primed on top of this, the primer that went on top of the primer started to crinkle and look weird. So I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know why you can't do a primer coat over a primer coat, but don't do that. I had to sand off the primer that got on top of the primer, and it just started getting to this like irreparable damage. So I was like, oh crap. So, okay, so here we go. This is the canopy, the cockpit. What is the canopy? I guess that's the glass. Okay, so this is the cockpit. I painted these blue parts white before painting them blue. I just painted this part white, this middle light thing white, and then blue on top of it, just to have some variation. I thought it would look a little bit better. I kept to red and lime green for the controls. There's some controls on and screens over here. I also did those. I think I might have weathered this edge with some dry brushing. Okay, so I dry brushed the control panels too. I think I dry brushed a lot of this with silver or light gray. All right, so here I've added a second coat of turquoise on top of the blue, and got a nice kind of multiple color look going on there. Let's see, I don't think I did anything else, but I might have added one or two colors. All right. So here it is, fit into the cockpit. I've added some black panel accent liner to the stairs, and I've used the white Tamiya kind of pastels to kind of light the edges of this surface and the stairs. Moving on, I used some dark to kind of shade this. You don't really need to. In hindsight, whenever you go over here, this thing is covering up most of it. You could just let the shadow naturally do that. This is just increasing the contrast. All right, so here's the color that I went over one more time to give it even more of a fun mixture of color. Here it is inside of the cockpit part. You can see here, this is the Tamiya weathering kit that I use. It's got the soot, rust, and snow. I used the snow on like the stairs and the edges. I used the snow on these little rims around the seat. You can see these right here. That was just to give the seats some definition. Without it, they just look like black, and that is some nice little detail they gave to the seats. So I wanted to make sure that showed. Went ahead and glued the seats in, glued the people in. It was fit in very nicely. Didn't have any problems gluing them. Okay, so moving on to this part, went ahead and painted the lights white. In the movie, those light things are like a really deep blue that is lit. This model is lit, yeah. So here we go. We got some slight difference in color on these. I did like a dark panzer gray green or something like that. So we're moving on. Then I added some French ultramarine oil color to give it a blue that really pops. In the end, I went and added some of that gloss medium on top of this, and this was like weeks later, I added the gloss medium, and it still pushed that French ultramarine around. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. I probably shouldn't have done that. I think I gave it like 2 or 3 coats of the French ultramarine, just really thin coats, and it ended up looking like this. This is the view you're going to get whenever you look in your model. You can't really see much. It's all in darkness unless you're going to add some lights to it. But the landing ramp comes down, and Darth Vader's standing on the landing ramp, and this is back there behind him. So that's pretty much what you're going to see. And here it is kind of in the dark. You can see that blue really pops. Let's see. Now we've started with the base, and I'm painting the base white gray. I'm going to go ahead and call this part 1 and go ahead and stop because we're running into 20 minutes, and this is going to be maybe halfway through it. We'll do a part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was all this beginning phase, getting everything weathered, getting the cockpit done. You can see here I painted the interior of the canopy black. It's really important that you don't paint the outside black, because then you're going to create a lot more trouble for yourself than you have to. Paint the inside black. Just flip this over, paint it black, and you have to sand the edges a little bit to make it fit in really well. There is flash on maybe this side, I know, making it a little difficult. But yeah, so this has been part 1. I'm going to make a part 2 just so we don't have like an hour-long video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get inspired to go out and make one of these for yourself. This was a super challenging model, but it ended up being one of my favorites in the end. It's huge, and it looks amazing. It's always been my favorite Empire ship from the movies. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2.